Will start Sunday against the Saints. Carson Wentz now will be the backup to Hurts, at least for now. Jalen Hurts is going to start Sunday against the Saints for the Philadelphia Eagles. Jeff, what's your reaction to this news?
Yeah, I'm not surprised, but I would say I'm a little bit disappointed in what's happened to Carson Wentz. I mean, when you think about kind of all this is getting laid at his feet, and obviously as a $100 million quarterback, it's going to do that. It's going to fall to you. But I'm not sure that the Eagles' offense is really set up to help Jalen Hurts be successful, right? I mean, from a receiving core, it's not like these guys are making a ton of plays. Your offensive line has been just decimated by injuries. I think they've had 10 or 11 different combinations of starters. So from a Jalen Hurts perspective, when you want to see him progress or kind of develop into a quarterback, I would have thought the rotation was still the best opportunity. Obviously, Doug Peterson didn't agree, decided to go wholesale change with Jalen Hurts. And listen, he gave him the spark against Green Bay. You saw it. He made some plays, but again, very small sample size. Nobody's, scripted or game plan defensively for Jalen Hurts. So we'll see how he adapts to all those things. But, disappointing season for Carson Wentz, but the Eagles feel like they got to make a move to try to win now, and that's Jalen Hurts gives them the best chance.
Yeah, you mentioned that spark. Let's play this out. Say Hurts does well. What then do we do about Carson Wentz in Philly?
You got to trade him. I mean, and listen, I mean, it's possible, right? I mean, I think we were talking this morning on Get Up, and I think Dan Graziano he talked about that it's a $34 or $35 million swing, but you could potentially trade him and make some things happen. But that would require Carson Wentz to be kind of ascending, right, Jay? Like when you see a guy descending, there's not a lot of people who want to throw the chips in. So to take him completely off the field, you're not giving a lot of people hope to want to try to trade him. And for the cap number that he's going to hit, I think it's $50 million or some kind of crazy number that he would put against the cap to be released. It's one that he's going to be part of the Eagles organization without a trade. And so, how does he help benefit Jalen Hurts moving forward? Can Jalen Hurts perform at this level? We'll see. Bunch of ifs and questions, I know that, but a lot of money on the table for the Philadelphia Eagles, no doubt about that.
All right, again, our breaking news from Adam Schefter and Chris Mortensen. Jalen Hurts will start for the Eagles. Carson Wentz will be his backup against the Saints. Jeff Saturday, thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
All right, busy few minutes there coming in with Ohio State's news and now Jalen Hurts. And I agree with what Jeff said is like, how can we accurately assess Jalen Hurts here given the supporting cast that he's dealing with, which is doesn't suddenly improve. Continuing to follow breaking news here on SportsCenter. Michigan announcing within the hour this Saturday's game at Ohio State canceled due to positive COVID-19 cases and student athletes in quarantine in that Wolverines program. Michigan saying in a statement it will continue daily testing with hopes of getting back on the practice field when cleared by medical professionals. This is huge for Ohio State, meanwhile. We'll welcome in our college football playoff reporter, Heather Dinich. And Heather, what's your reaction to this news now of this Michigan-Ohio State game moving specifically with regard to options for the Buckeyes now to try to get that crucial sixth game played in their season?
That's a loaded question, my friend, and I have a lot of answers for you. So here we go. Ready? First of all, sources say that Big Ten athletic directors are meeting on Wednesday. I would expect that they discuss the six-game rule. The athletic directors are the ones who implemented the rule. They have the power to change it. I think that it would also have to go to presidents and chancellors. But remember, in November, the Big Ten presidents and chancellors approved a rule that says if two teams are healthy and can play and they have their opponents cancel games because of COVID-19, those two teams can play each other even if they've played before. So follow me here. Ohio State cannot play Michigan. As I was sitting here waiting to join you, I got an email from Purdue. Purdue canceled practice today as it awaits its COVID-19 results. If Purdue cannot play Indiana, and Indiana and Ohio State are both sitting there without opponents, those two teams can play each other if that all works out. So there are still a lot of possibilities to get Ohio State that sixth game. But the ADs might not even have to change that rule if Purdue can't play Indiana.
Okay, so we're trying to follow the bouncing ball with regard to availability for Big Ten teams. And I understand what you're saying here because Indiana and Ohio State conceivably, by rule, with regard to the Big Ten as a conference, should not be punished for essentially being the victims of opposing teams throughout this season having COVID issues within their program. I'm wondering, Heather, if you have any insight from the Big Ten, from ADs, presidents, whomever, about the timetable with which we're working for a game to come together on short notice within the week, especially given what we saw from Coastal Carolina and BYU when Liberty had their issues and that game coming together in a matter of 2 or 3 days.
Great question. So the rule from the Big Ten presidents and chancellors says that must be determined by 1 o'clock Eastern on Wednesday, tomorrow. So the athletic directors are supposed to be meeting tomorrow morning. I don't know if enough of them agree that they should change the rule. There could be a competitiveness issue in that discussion, right? So they have the opportunity. They will absolutely discuss it. Whether or not it happens, I don't know. But now you also have the added factor of an issue with COVID-19 that Purdue is dealing with and added into that conversation.
And that is the ripple effect or the butterfly effect that one non-playoff team in Purdue can have on potentially another one in Big Ten, in Ohio State in the Big Ten. Heather, I want to play back your question to Ryan Day, his media availability earlier today when you posed that question about the conference's 6-game rule. Here's you and Ryan Day.
Hey, Ryan, how do you feel specifically about the Big Ten's rule that you have to play 6 games to qualify for the championship?
I think it's one of those things that was put into place early on, and decisions are made based on the information you have at the time, and then things change, as we know. And I just think we have to take a hard look periodically at all this stuff. And I think that this is one of those situations. And if we don't quite get the games we need to get into the championship game, then I think that needs to be looked at hard, just like anybody else in the conference. But there's no easy solution in times like this. So, I know those guys are going to come together and take a hard look at it and make sure that it was the right decision.
Our playoff predictor, Heather, giving Ohio State an 85% chance to make the playoff. It's second best among all teams, trailing only Alabama. Of course, this is an unprecedented situation, though. We still have a Notre Dame Clemson, teams 3 and 4 in the percentages, their game to be played in the ACC championship game. So with regard to the college football playoff, Heather Dinich, and that selection committee, assuming, let's say, worst case scenario for Ohio State, that just being that they're 5-0, that they don't get another game, that they don't get the Big Ten championship game, how do you feel that college football playoff selection committee will evaluate these Buckeyes?
That's going to hurt them. Selection Committee Chair Gary Barta talked last week about how that conference title is used as a tiebreaker in the Selection Committee meeting room. It's not the only factor. There's head-to-head, strength of schedule, common opponents. But not having a conference title makes it significantly more difficult for teams to get in. And remember, Ohio State doesn't have an Oregon game. There's no big non-conference opponent to help compensate for the lack of that title, as there has been in years past when teams have gotten in without winning the conference championship. So I think the discussion in that room between a Big Ten champion Ohio State and one that does not have that conference title or even 6 games is an entirely different conversation, and that number 4 spot becomes much more of a question mark.
All right, our ESPN college football playoff reporter Heather Dinich on a busy and developing situation in the Big Ten.